Hey, comrades, what's up? Welcome back to Story Time with old comrade Bear. That's essentially what this is. So we're solo leveling book 5. Yeah, we did it. Well, last we left off, our friend Jin, he was getting prepped to go raid that dungeon with the Night Guild, and then his sister's school is being invaded by orcs. Ruh-roh! So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and whatever else, and let's get started. Chapter 1 begins with Jin meeting up with the Night Guild. They head in, the Night Guild handles all the creatures, and the undead seem like very, very, very scared of Jin. I wonder why. Maybe because he's the Shadow Monarch. But they are running away, and they just don't seem too keen. Like, the whole place seems kind of like skittery about him being there. Meanwhile, back at the association gets a call from his Jin's sister's school about the slaughter from the orcs. Back in the gate, Jin feels like his sister's in trouble because the shadow creatures he had assigned to her have been like activated. So he summons old Anti-Boy, Beru, which freaks the knights out. But then he's like, "Hey, this guy's Beru. Him and his ant friends are gonna follow you around and help you finish the guild because I got something to go do, and I promise you I'd help. And this is how I'm gonna help." Then as he's leaving, and the knights are like, okay," and then Beru and his anti-boys, they take care of fucking business. Meanwhile, Jin is wandering out of the gate so that he can summon his dragon and fly back. No, he's going to shadow hop, but he has to be out of the dungeon to shadow hop? No, he shadow hopped here because he's a dumbass. That's right. And so he's going to fly over there. Hopefully he can get there before his sister's in trouble. But all the undead are bowing to him as he leaves. They're like, "Oh, hello, master. Hello, 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 hello." So he summons dragon, heads to school. Back at the school, the boss of the dungeon break finally finds the sister, and he goes to kill her, but the guards pop out, and they start fighting. And right before the... and, you know, obviously they can't keep recharging because of mana loss or whatever, and so finally the guild boss, or the boss, grabs his sister, and at that point, Jin and the dragon show up. So Jin rolls on in, saves his sister, kills the orc boss, who mentions a voice telling him to kill all humans again. We keep getting that. As well as the fact that Jin doesn't feel human. Oh no, what's that supposed to mean? Meanwhile... back at the gate, the knights clear it easily with old Anti-Boy. The boss is this Archlich who recognizes that both Beru and him serve the master, who's Jin. And then Beru kicks the shit out of him. And all the knights are like, "Oh, that's crazy." Like, liches are like super tough, fucking A-rank things. Goodness gracious. Jin takes his sister to the hospital. Or she gets taken to the hospital, so he goes to visit. On the way, President Ko talks to him, and then Jin is like very concerned. He's been talking to his assistant about how they were supposed to raid with just him, and he's like, "I don't know. I'll file some paperwork and whatever." And then Ko's like, "Oh no, don't worry about it. That's fine. That should be okay." And then the assistant calls him, and he says, "Hey, my hot cousin's gonna come. We're gonna invite her to be in the guild." Oh no, he calls his cousin, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to come be in this guild with us. Don't worry, Jinwoo Sun is he's in the guild too." And she's like, "Jinwoo Sun? The S-rank guy? Yeah, absolutely." So she shows up when Jin is there, and she wants to take a selfie, and she's like officially a member of the guild, and then that's it. So she takes a selfie and gets it on her Instagrams or whatever, because she's like an actress, and like she's super into that bullshit. And her dad sees it, so he's like super excited because now it's like, "Ooh, I can use this to make connections, make my pharmaceutical business even better." Meanwhile, the assistant's dad, Chairman... I can't remember. Chairman something. He wakes up from his like sleep, his mana sleep sickness, and his assistant shows him the video that they got from the hospital. Or no, just shows him information that is Jin's mom is recovered from the same mana sickness. And so then the chairman's like, "I must meet with this Jin. I must." And at that point, his daughter shows up. And you feel like it's going to be a much bigger deal because like people are talking about it. But then it doesn't really go anywhere, at least in this book. Anyway, Chapter 3 opens up with President Ko getting into like a disagreement with another politician. They call him congressman, but I don't know if that's the exact equivalent. That's like what the translation is, but I don't know if Korea just has like a congress with these guys like bicker the way these guys are bickering, but I don't know, maybe so. Anyway, there are politicians like, "How dare you giving special preferential treatment to Jin," and all this stuff. And finally the President Ko like shuts him the fuck up, and he says, "All right, well, would you prefer 10 A rank hunters or Jin?" to save you. And everyone in the room's like, well, obviously, we'd want Jin Woo-soon to save us. And then he explains that like all these, he like pulls out this paperwork and he's like, every country in the world is trying to get Jin to move to him. And so are we gonna like let him be scooped up by another country because we're gonna fucking not let him? This motherfucker is stronger than like all these people combined. Like he can do what the fuck he wants. And everyone's like, yeah, that's a good point. And then the other congressman's like, oh, I thought I had one of old President Ko and his crafty political bullshit, but I don't. He showed me what's up. Anyway, meanwhile, Jin is hitting all the like A rank, B rank gates around with his assistant. An association manager shows up to monitor. This is actually a hilarious chapter because he shows up to monitor, and then he measures the soldiers, and all the soldiers, like even the like the weakest soldiers, shadow soldiers of Jin, are like A and B rank hunters. So he's got like a whole army of these things. And then we like, all right, let's go in the gate. And then we go to President Ko, and he's just like lounging on his fucking couch. And then the association guy who went to monitor to make sure that Jin could actually get through like an A-rank gate by himself, he like stumbles in, and he looks like he just fucking saw a ghost or something. And he's like, I gotta sit down. And then President Ko's like, oh, are you okay? What happened? And he's like, oh, I felt bad for the monsters. And President Ko's like, what? And it's like, it was like a Naga gate. And we go in there, and then Jin, he's just fucking slaughtered everybody like mercilessly. He just killed, like just decimated everything. And me and the assistant just stood there, and the assistant was like gathering things up and putting them in bags and shit. And he summoned his aunts, and his aunts were like cleaning shit up and carrying bodies out and stuff. And I was just like, what is happening? And then at the boss, Jin like dismissed his army, and he fucking soloed the Naga, which is a giant Naga A-rank boss, with his like corresponding bodyguards, and just like two-shotted this motherfucker. And President Ko's like, oh. And at that point we switch back to Jin's perspective, and he like kills the Naga, and then he's like, oh, you have gained a level, you're now level 101. And then all his class skills, like all his Shadow Monarch skills, level up finally to level 2. And he's like, oh shit, yeah, that's fucking awesome. And so then he summons the boss Shadow. And the boss Shadow, now that one of his new skills is that when he summons shadows, they gain bonus levels. So now it starts off at level 13 instead of level 1. And he's like, hell yeah. Back at the hospital where Jin's sister is at, and this is in chapter 4, some asshole who's upset that the doctor didn't like give him the diagnosis or some bullshit that he wanted tries to burn it down. But of course his sister still has her shadow friends. And this time, at some point, Jin switched out the orcs with Beru. And so Barrow shows up and like puts out the fire and is like, you're gonna die, son. Meanwhile, a giant S-rank gate opens up over Tokyo, Japan, and Japan reaches out for help. But everyone's like, hey man, go fuck yourself. What did you do when Korea needed help? You told them to go fuck themselves, so how about you go fuck yourself? And Japan's in a lot of hurt because it's an S-rank gate, and they lost like half their hunters, their S-rank and A-rank hunters, at the Jeju Island raid with the anti-boys. And so the only person who accepts is this Russian hunter named Yuri. And Yuri's whole special power is that he can summon what do you call it? He can like seal magic, or he can create these like blocks. So he can like create like a room around the gate, and then the room like feeds off the mana from the gate to keep it strong. And so then he can just like maintain. He doesn't have to really do anything. He can just like live in the life of luxury. And apparently he's done this several other times in other countries for their gates. And it seems like he's like a national rank hunter, but I don't think it ever says that. So I think I just like added that in my brain and in my notes, but I don't think so. But he's charging like 10 billion yen a month, which is a lot, even for like the inflated yen. And then Japan's like, well, fuck it, I guess that's what we got to do. Meanwhile, Jin is just heading back to the association headquarters. No, to his guild headquarters, where he runs into Hunter Cha. And she tells him the message that she got from the healer guy. So when she was brought back from the dead, when Jin shadowed the hunter guy so that he could heal her before she died, he gave her a message. And she was like, I don't know if it was like super important, and I didn't really get the full message, but I feel like I thought about it for a few days. And the message is something, be aware of using your powers, or the true nature of your powers, or something like that. And he's like, oh, okay, good to know. Next, Jin gets access to a ton of high-rank gates in Seoul and rushes through them all for 6 days straight. While he waits for the key, remember that old key in his item inventory that's supposed to unlock after a few days? That finally fucking unlocks. Meanwhile, the assistant's dad, chairman Yu? I think they're Yu. I think it's Jin Yu. So it's Jin Woo and Jin Yu. It's Jin Woo's son and then Jin Yu. I think that's the names. Something like that. J-U, maybe. I can't remember. Anyway, it's like audiobooks, so it's hard for me to like track the names exactly. So assistant guy's dad, the chairman, he gathers a bunch of information and about the mom's recovery, about what happened, all that good stuff. Yuri shows up in Japan. He's like a big sensation, makes a big presence known, and then at the end of chapter 4, Jin's dad is like hanging out on a skyscraper near this thing, and he's like, "It has begun." Dun dun dun. The next day, or around that time, a bunch of reporters and stuff have showed up in Tokyo for the dungeon break. They're going to record it, and Yuri's whole thing. Yuri declares his barrier to be perfect, and there's and these Japanese like officials are like very ashamed of the whole thing. Meanwhile, in Korea, Jin is sneaking out of the house when his mom catches him. Like, "Where you going?" And he's like, "Oh, mama, I gotta go to get some ice cream from the store," because he wants to use his key. And so he tracks it down, and the key leads up to his sister's school. I guess another gate opened right there. And it's the same dungeon that he gained his powers in the first place when he became a player, like the very beginning of book 1. And there's already a guild there. I don't remember their name. But he gets permission from the association to go in to save them, because he's like, they got to get the fuck out of there. So once he ends in there, they're all kind of assholes to him until they realize who he is. And then they're at the door to get to like the double dungeon, and they're about to go in, but they can't figure out how to get the door open. And he's like, he uses the key to open the door, and then the guild master is like, "I'm going in, you bitches. I don't believe this guy. He's just trying to steal our stuff." And so Jin lets him do it, and then he almost gets smashed by a statue, but Jin saves him at the very last second. He's like, "Now scoot on out of here, motherfuckers." And they're like, "Yeah, okay." So then he hits in there, and now he's so much stronger and senses and he senses all the statues are just puppets. But he finds a puppet master, who's the statue holding it's a statue that was holding like the decree, like the thing at the beginning that he had to puzzle out and figure out what's going on. So he calls out to him. The guy doesn't answer, so Jin's goes to stab him, and the statue blocks, and then says, "Finally." Back in Japan, giants start coming through the gate, and they get stopped by Yuri's barrier. They're pouring out. But then finally, like, the boss giant comes out, and he just punches the fuck through that barrier like it's nothing. And then Yuri's like, "Ruh-roh," and all the people in Japan are like, "Oh, fuck." And then the giant eats him. Just straight up eats Yuri. And then they start pouring out. Back with Jin, the statue is like an angel statue with like 6 wings. And it's they go back and forth, and essentially it says, "I will not tell you anything until you pass the test." And then he's like, "What test?" And all the statues come to fight him. And Jin gets like a notification from the system that he's not allowed to use potions or any of that stuff. Like and he can't use any of his class skills or whatever. Oh yeah, and at some point this guy identifies himself as the architect of the system that is powering up Jin. So this guy somehow used magic or some bullshit to create the system in which Jin can become so powerful he can kill the architect, which happens later on in the book. And then, so he's killing statues, beating the shit out of them. The angel's like dancing around, getting all excited. And then Big Boy shows up with the laser eyes, and Jin escapes that guy and is like, "All right, time to party." So he fights him, he bashes him up, he jumps on his head, beats the shit out of him. And then the architect, he's having a blast. He's like, again, he's super enjoying himself. This leads into chapter 6. And then he destroys all the statues, and the angel's like, "All right, time to party." And so some of his arms turn into some of his wings turn into arms, and then he's like, "Time to start the final test." And so then like a timer starts in the system, and Jin has 10 minutes to defeat him. And he also reveals, this is where he reveals that he's the architect controlling the system and the living thing and everything else. So they fight, and it gets like super crazy. Like it's like faster, and they're just beating the shit out of each other. And this is like first time Jin's been like challenged. The angel's also very impressed. He's like, "Holy shit, I can't believe you're winning." And then Jin like really starts winning. And so then the angel gets freaked out and starts summoning the other statues. So they all rise up again. Jin beats them, and finally the statue like gives up with like 2 minutes left. And then asks Jin if he's sure he wants to find out who he is. And Jin says yes. And then he's transported to another world, which is full of magic beasts, like a red world with a purple sky. And then a giant gate opens, and all these like silver angel assholes come pouring out, and they're just like slaughtering magic beasts and stuff. And then he feels like the presence of a shadow, and it's the Shadow Monarch. And the Shadow Monarch, let's see, he has a devastating effect. He starts destroying the angels with like his unlimited magic and his unlimited ability to summon shadow beasts and all that stuff. And then the Demon Monarch and some sort of beast monarch come out, and they've like, the Shadow Monarch like cries out that they've betrayed him and that they could have completed this arc or whatever, but now he has to fight them. So he starts fighting the Demon Monarch, and then right as he kills the Demon Monarch, Jin is like become one with the Shadow Monarch. And it's the Demon Monarch's the same guy he killed in like the tower. So that must have been like a vestige of him, or like a shadow summon version or something. But he kills him. And then the Demon Monarch and the Shadow Monarch are having like a conversation. Jin doesn't understand like what's going on exactly with the language. And then let's see what happens. Oh, so meanwhile, outside, while this is all going on, meanwhile, the Association shows up to check on Jin because they got word from the Association people who were checking out the other guild who were running through this thing in the double dungeon. And the gate is like producing so much mana. They were like, it is like off the charts. Like anyone who can detect mana is like, holy shit, that's a lot. So they summon the Hunters Guild for support. So the Hunters Guild, because this is the Hunters Guild territory and they're the closest, they show up. And of course, Cha shows up because she's in love with him. And then when they get there, at the gate, the Hunters are like, holy shit, that's a lot. I don't know if we can head in there. And this whole time there's like a reporter outside watching. He's like, oh, while these people are watching the Japan get destroyed, I'm going to do Korean stuff because this is Korea and that's what's going to sell, which he's right. It later gets proven super right. So they all head in and, you know, it's like creepy as fuck. And they get to like the chamber and it's like illegal entry or some bullshit. And the angel's like, what are you doing here? You can't be here. But the master's going to do whatever. Because he's just like standing over, like Jin looks like he's sleeping on the ground, and the architect's standing over him looking like menacing and stuff. And then he mentions something about a sacrifice for the Highness. They're going to sacrifice you for His Highness. And then he like immediately kills one of the hunters, and they're like, shit. And he's like, all right, I'm ready to do this. Then all the statues start rising up, and the hunters are backed up, and the door slams shut, and they're fucked. And the architect keeps talking about how the king's going to be reborn and stuff, and they're like, we got to wake up Jin. So they try to do that, but then the angel's like going to stop him. But Cha, who's the best hunter outside of Jin in like all of Korea, it seems, she's like starts fighting the architect so that he stops killing hunters and like one-shotting hunters, and she has to use like all her super moves that she's been like hiding, like the Sword of Light, and then she pulls out like this the dancing combo or whatever, the dancing blade or whatever, so she can like keep up with like his agility score or whatever. And so she's having like, but she's getting turned up as well. It's like when she was fighting Beirut in like the last book. It's like she's trying to keep up, but it's like she's like sweating and like getting cut up, and it's really really intense. And the architect's like very amused. He's like, wow, another human that kind of like barely keep up. Is pretty impressed. And so he like increases like his power level or whatever, like a Dragon Ball Z manga. And she's able to like cut him, I think like once or twice, and then he's like, I've had enough. And so he like breaks one of her arms and then beats the shit out of her. She gets healed at the last second, and then the architect turns and like kills that healer. And then he starts killing other hunters. And then meanwhile, the hunter president, who is like the head of the hunters, like the hunter guild president, is trying to he's like, we gotta wake up Jin. He's the only way we're gonna survive. Because Cha's about to be killed by the angel statue when it notices a shadow off in the corner of Cha. So while he's beating up Cha, she has like a shadow beast that Jin put in there a while ago, and so he notices it and he's like, what's that doing here? And he stops like killing her because he's about to like massacre her, and he's like, wait a second, did the Shadow Monarch put, and he has a whole like internal debate about, did the Shadow Monarch put him in there, or is it Jin who put him in there? Because if it's Shadow Monarch, I don't want to do anything because for some reason the Shadow Monarch marked this woman, but if it was Jin, fuck that guy, I don't care about him whatsoever. And Zach, he pauses him long enough and he starts demanding the connection she has to Jin, and she says they're a friend, and the angel says, all right, fine, I'm going to kill everyone else, but you can see the rebirth of the king. Time to die. And then it gets socked right in the back of the fucking head and sent flying across the room. And Jin is standing there. And Jin's like, do I have two hearts now? And he's like, the fuck you do to my body, you asshole? So Jin, that's the end of chapter 7. Chapter 8, Jin starts reflecting on the second heart, and he's like, check my mana. And he has over 130,000 mana, which before he had like 9,000. And he's like, damn. He also has like a new title called Demon Hunter. I guess he got that from the heart, from killing the Demon Monarch in like real life and not just like fake life. Extra Life. What was that thing called? Extra Life? No. Second Life. The architect is super confused. He's like, how are you in control and not the Black Heart? And then he just fucking kills the architect because he's like, tell me more. And the architect's like, no, fuck you. And then Jin's like, this is your last warning. I'm going to fucking murder you. And the architect's like, no, I don't believe you. You're an asshole. And then Jin's like, fuck it. And then he like massacres him. And then he kills all the statues and saves all the hunters. Well, not all the hunters. There's like, it sounds like a dozen of them get killed. Sad times. But he kills them all. Afterwards, he runs Cha outside of the room, and that way he like kicks the fucking door open. He's like, fuck this door. And then he takes a potion out of his inventory and like gives it to her to cure her because he couldn't use any potions or anything in this room for whatever reason. It's got like a no fucking around curse on it or whatever. And then he gets all the gate starts to close because the boss died, obviously. And so everyone's fleeing out of there. And they're like, oh, we don't want to leave our compatriots, but there's something we can do because we can't carry them out because the gate's too big or something. And so Jin's like, oh, no problem. So he summons like ants to pick them all up and run. So they all get the fuck out of there. Or he pulls all because he can't summon creatures into the room. So he uses ruler's authority, picks up all the bodies out of like the debris, pulls them out, and then he summons ants. The ants grab them, and everyone like nopes the fuck out of there right before the gate closes. And when he gets out, he asks Cha, he's like, so what's going on with Japan? And she's like, oh, the gate broke and everyone's doomed. Like, Japan is fucking doomed. And then Jin's kind of a little conflicted because he knows that the Japanese Hunters Association was like, fuck Korea, we're going to fuck them over. And so he's like, kind of got what they deserved, I guess. Anyway, when Cha and Jin are walking out of there, the reporter takes a picture which ends up being like on the cover of the #1 newspaper in like all of Korea, or the #1 selling because of that picture, because everyone else is reporting on the Japanese gate break, but most Koreans are like, fuck, don't care. But it's this Korean like superhero. Everyone's like, yeah, Korea, fuck yeah. Chapter 9 begins. We have an American agent is flying in a helicopter over like the devastated Tokyo, and all the giants have like destroyed most of like central Tokyo and like eaten all the people. And they kind of talk, him and this like Japanese guy are like chatting about how like the giants like ate up and destroyed, and like they're not just here to like kill people, they're here to like cause mayhem, and they're causing a lot of mayhem. And they fly around, and the U.S. agent's like thinking about it, and then at some point the Japanese guy like gets on his hands and knees and begs for America to help, and he's like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And he knows in his heart of hearts there's no fucking way America's gonna get involved. They're like, fuck this, because they had an S rank, they had that dragon on like the East Coast or West Coast, and there's no way they're gonna send all their hunters with the chance that like some bullshit's gonna happen over there. Anyway, Jin continues to do his daily quests, as you do. He heads over to the guild and he sees Assistant having a chat with a bunch of reporters because they all saw him in the newspaper and they want to chit chat, and he's about to intervene, but he sees that his assistant's like kind of loving it, that he's enjoying the attention and being able to actually do something for the guild, and he's like, you know what, I'll let him have this one. And at that point, the assistant's dad, Chairman Yu, I think I wrote it down this time. In front of the guild, approached by the father, drive up, speak with something, Chairman, I don't know. Anyway, so he's like, hey, can I chat? I need to talk with you. Can we go someplace else? And then Jin's like, yeah, sure, I guess that's fine. So they drive off to the chairman's like main office, and they're walking through, and everyone's like, oh, is that Jin Woo-sun with the chairman? Wow, what's going on there? Oh, And then they head into his office, and his brother's hanging out there, the pharmaceutical guy who's the father of the lady in his guild. And they have like a weird conversation where the guy's like, oh, my friend Jin, blah, 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 blah. Like he's going to marry his daughter off to this superhero guy. And then he finally like leaves. And then the chairman is like, do you know that guy? And Jin's like, that's the first time I ever met him. And he's like, my fucking brother. And then he hands him a blank check for, dun, 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 Chapter 10. To cure his illness. The same one that Jin's mother had. Jin denies his request and leaves. Because he's like, I don't know anything about you. Jin's not having this conversation with him. He's like, no, I'm going to have to pass on this one. But good luck. And the guy's like super sad. He's like, I don't know what he wants. They have like a whole conversation about it. And then while he's walking out, he hears about Japan and how it's just completely decimated and all this stuff. And then at some point he gets upset and he's like, those fucking weaklings eating all those humans. And he's like, did I just think that? It's like, do I really think these giants are weaklings? That's fun. Good for me. Time to do more daily quests, more push-up drills. And then we get like people from around the world start getting really upset with Korea for not helping Japan, especially after they helped them with the Jeju Island raid or whatever. And then we get kind of like a weird back and forth. So it's like, okay, so President Ko finally has a press conference where he's, after like 3 days of Japan being destroyed, where he reveals what Japan did to them, like essentially the black box, to show like we will not be helping. But it's like, okay, so President Ko like has a press conference and he starts it, and then we like go back a couple days to Jin, and Jin is talking, and this is like the day after he met with the assistant's dad. Oh no, we also find out that America's not going to help because they have an S-rank gate that appeared over Maryland that's not as big as the Japanese one, but they need their hunters for that. But anyway, so then Jin's talking to his assistant, and they have a whole conversation about, well, first they have a conversation about helping out the people in Japan, whether they should do it or not. And then the assistant's like, well, if you're going to go, take me with you. And he's like, what? And he's like, I want to be a part of this guild. I'm a part of this guild. I want to be there. And, you know, people always talk about you, but I want some of that recognition too. And then Jin realizes he's like, yeah, I like this guy. He's like, you know, works hard. And he wants recognition for the things that he does. So that's good stuff. So then he goes to the gym at the association, the S-rank gym, and like fights Beru, and he beats him like 127 times. And Beru's like, oh, you're so strong. And then he's like, hey, Beru, we're homies, right? And Beru's like, yes, my lord. And he's like, what do you think about this fucking thing we should do? Do you think we should go do this? And then actually what happens first is the Beru's like, hey, we all feel, are you okay, master? We all feel your distress. Like, what's going on? You feel really, like, you seem really upset about something. He's like, well, Beru, let me counsel with you since you're like an emperor as well. And so they chit chat about his feelings about Japan and what they should do there. And he's just confused about whether he should go help Japan. And the Ant King tells him that whatever he wants to do, whatever he feels like doing, they will support him 100% because, you know, we're all family. And family is the most important thing. And Ohana means family. And there's no power of friendship actually in this. Friendship is not magic in the world of solo leveling. Family is, though. And family is the shadows you make along the way. The real lesson we learn is the shadows we make along the way, or some bullshit. Anyway, so then we go back to the press conference 3 days ahead of time. And in the press conference, after President Ko reveals that Japan like fucked them over real hard, he's like, the Hunters Association of Korea will not be helping the people of Japan. And then he starts to walk off, and everyone's like, they're, you know, all aghast about what occurred. And then he's like, and then he stops and turns around, and he's like, that doesn't mean an individual hunter will not be helping. And in fact, we have one such hunter who is going to Japan to help them right now. And they're like, who could this be? And he's like, it's Jin Woo-soon. And everyone's like, excellent. So that's the end of the book. It's so good. I gotta find the rest of these books. I think I have 8 audiobooks. I'm enjoying this so much. I might just have to fucking get these like light novels and read them if they don't have audiobook versions that I can track down. But excellent. So that's the end of book 5. Highly recommended. It's just continues to be excellently written, excellently translated. As far as I can tell, like at least it's like super exciting and fun to read, and there's not any like wanky like bullshit in it. So fucking fantastic. I'll check out this anime sometime too. Maybe when I finish all this. I hear it's pretty good. They just are releasing the second season on Crunchyroll right now. It's like 2024 winter. So anyway, cool. Hope you're all doing great. And go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.